saw with my eyes is found in the books of hadith. He could not know it himself. So one day his roommate was reading Quran, and weird growlings come from his room. And they come in and they find him writhing, and like clearly he's like possessed and whatnot. And so his roommates start reading Quran over him. And one of them was a friend of mine, and he knows that I'm studying with the Sheikh. So I get a phone call in my apartment. It's like, Sheikh, you gotta come over. You gotta come over quickly. There's somebody that, we need you for. It's the Ruqya session, whatnot. And of course, I'm just a graduate student. I'm excited. Okay, get into my, Ghostbusters mode. Yeah, what's the Ghostbusters? What is the backdrop for it? No? I forgot. Who you gonna call? That's it. Yeah. Who you gonna call? And it's like YQ. Okay, so he calls up YQ. It's like, come on, I need you here. We got somebody writing on the floor. Come do Ruqya. And I'm taking a class with the Sheikh. I'm like, yeah, I can handle this. Don't worry. I know. I've studied. Zero experience, plenty of book knowledge at the time, right? Put the thobe on, just drive to the dormitory. They were in the dormitory, and so the brother's lying down, and I spent 2 hours the whole time there. So I remember many incidents happened there. Of the things is that when I first started reading Quran, subhanAllah, again with my own eyes, it's a very thin brother, just wearing a thobe, when I started reciting, I could see the jinn moving up and down his body. His body is rippling as if there's like an alien entity going up and down. And I would put my hand on his chest, and I'd see it like fluttering away. And I put my hand there, and it goes back up and goes here. I put my hand here, and it goes. So I'm literally watching his body. You can't make your body ripple. You can't have just ripples coming up and down the body this way. And I'm seeing with my eyes that rippling taking place, and I'm beginning to panic quite a lot in this regard, okay? Because you can this is really bizarre. We spent the whole afternoon there, so one of the brothers, mashallah, he thinks that
hey! Oh my god, this is scary.
Killian, it's me. Open up.
Friends here, huh?
Killian, keep them busy.
So what's happening? We're gonna promise some safe. I need this type of touch.
Killian, fuck, Killian, come on. Killian, you took over my body this morning and get killed. Asshole! Stop them! Get me in! Let me in!
And he doesn't pick it up. Let's go on the carpet. I'm going for round 2.
Shit, there's a lot of them.
Swallow it. It's the left.
Get down, yes.
And this is really losing our iman.
Oh, we did it.
Speaking the truth.
I doubt we're done. Trouble loves company.
Correct faith. Again, many things can be said here.
Hakon, get us in there!
I'm trying. Killian, I know you're there!
Again, it's a brand new partner. So, like, testing.
Great.
This guy. I'm gonna call, my teacher. Mention him by name.
Is that all of them?
Don't call him.
I think so.
I said, I'm gonna call him.
Help me.
The jinn went wild. No. I set up my
Come on, help me.
Call Sheriff Spring. Somebody, Spring. Okay? I said, I'm gonna call that shit. He started laughing. He goes, no big deal. I called him, no big deal. Okay? Then I said, I'm gonna call Sheriff maybe.
We're so fucked.
and his head like this. They're based on cumulative experiences of men. So,
God damn it, Killian. Should have waited a while longer.
I'm telling you to watch them, but I'm saying this is the experience of men that is translated into these scripts and whatnot.
Oh, come on, stop being such a bastard already.
Joking voice, the eyes
Look at this.
up, you can see the arrogance, and he speaks. Are you gonna bring him back from the dead? Like, literally. And I just.
Where did you?
Because this kid had no clue who the Ibn
Invite
was.
us in, or it'll get even
I'm
more
gonna bring
rare.
Chef Middle East, and he just laughed at me. What are you gonna bring? You're gonna bring from the dead? And I
Who is
realized
this?
this is an entity that is not human. This is an entity from another world. So that was my first experience, which was relatively tame compared to other stuff. So, bottom line, it's not a joke.
I'm a
It's
pilgrim.
a real world out there. But I'm
Haven't
sure
been
I'll
here
wish I had
long,
said
have
this,
you?
But I'll say it again.
How did you get into town?
I'll tell you everything, just let us in.
Is a mechanism
I
that
waited for a
takes you
pilgrim
from
once.
a higher
He was supposed to.
multiple experiences.
Ah,
I have
forget
had
it. Doesn't
my whole
matter
life
anymore.
Where my adhkar have protected me. One of now the simple
What are
sources
you up
that
to,
they've done,
Hakon,
and again,
huh?
not a very difficult real section.
I gave him an inhibitor.
And I went
Survive.
all night,
You
did
mad?
adhkar on myself before
He
going
needs
to
a
sleep.
biomarker.
And
Don't
middle
have
of the
one.
night,
Bullshit.
you know, there's this statement that
Seriously.
you're not asleep,
Motherfucker.
you're not awake. That's typically when the jinn's gonna come. You kind of wake up, but you're not awake. Okay? I couldn't see a dark figure.
The hospital then.
I'm half asleep, half awake.
I was
Now
hoping
they're
to
awake, now
avoid
they're
it.
asleep.
Always
You think
looking
you're
for an
asleep, but
easy
you're
way,
not.
huh,
You think you're
Hakon?
awake.
I just
you're
need a
snap
UV
back.
lamp.
You see the
I'll
dark
come back for you. Hold
I
tight.
see it
Hakon,
walking
why you
in front of
helping
me
him,
clearly,
huh?
even though it
Remember
is
when we
pitch
used to
black,
help people?
but I know it's there. I'm not
Me?
seeing it with my
Sure.
eyes, I'm seeing it with my brain.
But I doubt
And
you
I
do.
see it.
Stay here
and
and
it
rest by the
stops.
lamp. Don't
And
listen
I
to that
know
dumbass.
It stopped because there was a barrier because of my myself. Because I did the adhkar. You know when you go to sleep, you blow yourself, right?
Idiot.
I never
We used
in
to
my
have
life,
people
no
make
matter
them
how
that
tired I
shit.
am, no matter what's happened, no matter what state I'm in, I never go to sleep without doing ruqya. Because I have been attacked multiple times in my life with these entities. And I have seen when I do ruqya, there is a wall. And I remember that night clearly that I did ruqya in the daytime. I think even that was the same incident that happened in front of you that time. That I did ruqya at that time and I went to sleep and I did the adhkar. And I blew over myself. And I remember vividly that entity coming straight towards me, and then it stops. And I knew it stopped because it didn't have the power to come and harm me.
You know,
because
they
I
say
recited
curiosity
Ikhlas
killed the
and
cat.
and Falaq an-Nas, and I had recited Ayat al-Kursi and the last two verses of Baqarah, and I had blown over myself. So it was a barrier between me and that entity. So, point of action, always do your adhkar, and always before you go to
To get
sleep,
started in data analytics, you don't need previous experience or to Google data analytics certificate. That's it. I had them up to here with all the negative
What
news.
I appreciate about the Google Career Certificate is you're not just sticking your nose in a book, you're learning the day-to-day work of a security analyst. There's no previous experience required, which is pretty amazing when you think about how technical the cybersecurity field is. They really give you the foundational skills that help you get a job in this industry and that can help you achieve really exciting things in this field. So what are you waiting for? Check out Google Career Certificates. Enroll today.
So, I'm being asked this a lot recently. What is my advice when it comes to the question, what is the best way right now to make a living online? And especially this is being asked by people who are looking to have the ability to better control their lives, with things like how much money they can make, how much time freedom they've got. People are really looking to create a different lifestyle for themselves, quite often it's geographical freedom so they can live anywhere. And now more than ever, people are wanting to know how to thrive in tougher times, like a recession. And I've been on podcasts, I've been interviewed about this stuff. And after 15 years of building online businesses and just simple income streams online, here's generally the advice I like to give. Take it or leave it. Number one, be prepared to put in some hard work up front. Okay, upfront work. Now this is probably the number one secret of the modern world, Steve. Because we get to work and we create what I like to refer to as digital assets, and here's what I mean. If you think about the typical and traditional way to build wealth, it would go something like this. You get a job, make a good living, Invest some of that money into assets. Could be something like real estate. You know, buy your first rental property, rent it out, and then if you can, rinse and repeat that process over time until you've got passive income, and that income maybe one day replaces your job and enables you to retire wealthy, etc. Now, for sure, that could be a good strategy, but it isn't something that most people will ever achieve. You know, these days in particular, it's a big enough challenge just to own your own home, let alone a portfolio of property, just different times. Instead, here's my advice, and it's after literally helping thousands of others do something along the lines of this, okay? Get some simple digital skills and create digital assets. Now, as an example, learn how to sell products online. These could be your own products, or they could simply be as an affiliate, even a drop shipper for other brands where you can sign up for free to their affiliate programs. And then what's next? Well, like I said, you put in some work up front, and that looks something like this. You know, you find a product that you like, something that you can get behind, and then you start to promote and sell it using
fallen back into the distance, viewed only through the lenses of our most powerful telescopes. Another, even more distant world was out there waiting for our first arrival. On the night of the 23rd of January,
How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PS Ready, my channel that's all about PlayStation. If you're subscribed, you already knew that, but if you're not subscribed, you should subscribe because I am this close. I was going to say something I can't say. Something's hair away from 200,000 subscribers, so be one of the people who pushes me over. I would greatly appreciate it. In today's video, I've got 3 topics to cover. The first one is that we now have even more hints that Sony is kind of shifting things away from the Steam Deck and towards their own handheld. Second on the list, you now have your cheapest opportunity to get pretty much unlimited storage in your PS5. And finally, we're going to talk about how even though your PS5 just became a PS2, it is once again no longer the best PS2. All right, let's talk about this first news story here. So if you didn't know, I know you know because you guys always comment about it. Sony's been releasing a lot of their first-party games over on PC, the latest of those being Ghost of Tsushima's Director's Cut. And there was a big problem in the PC world when that happened because the launcher that they use kind of screws things up, especially in Ghost of Tsushima's Legends mode. If you want to play multiplayer on the Steam Deck, you basically have to have a way to dual boot Windows because Linux is blocked out from using the multiplayer.
Aiden, Babaden, Stupido, Babudo. Find me.
Morning. HQ here. On to the right, please, copy.
Yeah, very funny. Did you make it?
Almost. Biomarkers are at the GRE hospital. I'll be there shortly, but to get the job done, I need you to join me.
Where should I go?
Others want
With
lost
Killian's door
cities,
to your
strange
back, you'll be pointing
disappearances,
right at
or
it. Hold the line.
reptilian humanoids. Today, we fulfill all these requests in one video. There is no other place on Earth steeped in more mystery than Mount Shasta. Aliens, ghosts, underground bases, interdimensional portals. Mount Shasta has it all. Let's find out why. As you approach Mount Shasta, the first thing you notice is how absolutely out of place it is. Though it's one of the tallest peaks in North America, it's not directly connected to any other mountains. It stands alone and seems to lead
Once I was taking my second wife to the hospital.
feet above sea level. Mount Shasta is so tall and steep that it pierces the clouds and creates its own weather. Located in Northern California, Mount Shasta is actually a semi-active volcano. Its last major eruption was in 1250, but as recently as last year, Mount Shasta was oozing lava that caused several fires in the surrounding forest. And just about every type of paranormal event you can think of converges
Never drove that fast in my life.
UFO sightings,
Our water
mysterious
broke 3
disappearances,
months
lost
early.
cities,
Do you
ghosts,
have kids?
gods, everything.
There was no
Mount Shasta
saving that
legends
one.
existed in every culture
And
that's
other
lived
than
in its
that,
shadow.
none that I know of.
First cultures.
Sorry.
Native tribes have
It's
inhabited
fine.
the area for over 10,000
What normal
years,
person would want his
making it
kid
one of the
to see a
longest
world like
natural
this?
areas in North America. And each tribe has a myth about the mountain. Some tribes say Mount Shasta is the sacred center of the universe. Others say the mountain is the birthplace of all life. Now, as different as these stories are, there is one theme found in every native legend: they do not go above the tree line.
That area is reserved for the Sky People. Not far from Mount Shasta is Petroglyph Point, which has some of the oldest stone writing ever found in North America, dating back thousands of years. And the glyphs depict the types of things you'd expect to see. Animals, rivers, the sun, stars. But there are also carvings of what some people believe are Sky People. Native tribes believe that the Sky People were spiritual beings who existed in a different realm, a plane of existence where souls and spirits of the dead dwell. But what if the Sky People aren't spirits of the dead, but are actually beings that are very much alive, just not human? There are Native American legends that describe a race of giants that lived on Mount Shasta. The Modoc have the Matagagme, which are said to be the keepers of the woods. Could these ancient people be describing Bigfoot? Matagagme is the Modoc word for Bigfoot, and it's similar to the Tibetan word Metogangme, which is their word for Yeti.
Hey, how do ancient Indians in Tibet end up with the same word for Bigfoot?
Well,
It would have to be some kind of land bridge between India and America. Wait a minute.
you're getting way ahead of me on this one, pal.
What are we going to talk about?
We are. Since at least the 1920s, people have claimed to see tall creatures roaming the forests around Mount Shasta. In 1976, a camper thought a park ranger was investigating his camp, but upon closer inspection, it was a Bigfoot. Another famous account happened in 1962.
Once I was taking my second wife to the hospital. Never drove that fast in my life.
It does.
Her waters broke 3 months early.
I get it.
You have kids?
There was no saving that one.
I said I get it.
And other than that, none that I know
In
of.
1930,
Sorry.
a humanoid skeleton that was over 8 feet tall was
What
discovered
normal
near Mount
person would
Shasta.
want his kids
This
to
wasn't
see a
fringe
world like
report.
this?
It was covered by major newspapers all over the area. And native legends say the race of giants prospered on the earth for thousands of years, but were suddenly wiped out in a great flood.
You know what it ends with a great flood, doesn't it?
Every time. But there's an interpretation of this legend that claims the giants in the woods are not Bigfoot. They're a race of people called Lemurians. And that brings us to the fascinating story of J.C. Brown. He's considered the first person to find the lost
The lock is
civilization
broken.
of Lemuria.
Don't
The
worry.
story?
Find the
What's
old
mysterious
bus.
term?
A bus?
At 0 hour, a bus crashed into the hospital. Broke through the wall. You can use it to get
In
inside.
1904,
Since no
J.C.
one could
Brown
get in,
was
there's a good
working as
chance there'll be some
geologist for a
markers
gold
left.
mining operation. And he was sent to Mount Shasta to look for gold. During one of Brown's expeditions, he came across a rock fall that looked like something could be buried underneath. And when he cleared the rubble, he discovered the entrance to a cave that disappeared into the darkness for what looked like forever. Brown hiked the length of the tunnel, which turned out to be 11 miles long. And that may sound crazy, but Mount Shasta is a volcano, and the entire area around the valley
I'm
is
at the main
bedrock
entrance.
lava tubes.
I marked a
Lava tubes
safe
can
route
be
for
huge
you.
and stretch
I'm waiting by
miles
the lobby.
underground. And when J.C. Brown reached the end of the tunnel, he found what he described as the remains of an ancient city. He found machinery long abandoned that looked like it was used in a mining operation. He found statues, tablets, shields, and weapons, all made of gold, and all inscribed in hieroglyphics.
Big
He
building,
found
huh?
what he called a worship room
You
with
already took over
statues that
quite a
seemed to
few of
glow
these,
in the
but drug
dark.
research.
And the final chamber of the cave
When you
system
don't get far,
was a
they
tomb
grab
where
research
27
volunteers.
giant skeletons
They
were
pay them
arranged.
lots of money.
And they ranged in
What
height
was the
from
result?
7 feet to over 10
lot of
feet
shit.
tall. Unsure of what to do, J.C. Brown covered the entrance to the cave and told no one about it. But over the next few years, Brown became obsessed with a book by James Churchward called The Lost Continent of View, and by stories of Lemuria, which he thought could be the same thing. Lemuria, according to the legend, was an entire continent that sunk beneath the ocean many thousands of years ago.
He sounds like it was.
Well, it's funny you should say that. Turns out Lemuria and Atlantis
Just
are
a little
connected.
more. We don't have much time. Stay close to me.
In 1899, Frederick Spencer Oliver published a book called A Dweller on Two Planets, which tells an amazing story that was found written on ancient Hindu tablets. For a
You know how
million
to
years
open
ago,
locks?
the Earth was ruled by
Sure.
two very
Turn the
advanced
key.
civilizations.
What if you
the
don't have a
Atlanteans
key?
and the Lemurians.
Hakon,
And both cultures had
I've traveled
their
thousands of
gods and
kilometers.
stars.
You think doors are a
Atlantis
problem
was
for
the
me?
dominant culture, and for many years
Okay,
it was
just checking.
benevolent. But
I
about
think this room should have all
25,000
the
years
instruments
ago,
you need,
Atlantis
maestro.
became corrupt and wanted to rule all people
I found
on
some
the
scrap.
Earth. Lemurians rejected
make
this
lockpicks
idea
out of
and
that.
be left alone. And after much internal conflict, Atlantis decided to go to war with the Lemurians. And for years, the two mighty civilizations deployed devastating nuclear weapons against each other. The explosions were so violent that they caused the Earth's tectonic plates to become unstable and the magnetic poles to shift. Finally, a massive flood tore across the planet and laid waste to both civilizations. In all, 60 million Lemurians died. Atlantis suffered severe losses as well. The few surviving Atlanteans evacuated to Agartha, an underground city that we'll be covering on this channel. The last remaining Lemurians fled to Mount Shasta and established a city called Telos. Amazing is, there's a Hawaiian legend that says the islands of Hawaii were once part of a vast continent called Niue, also known as Lemuria. Once J.C. Brown learned of these stories, he was convinced that he had found the lost civilization of Lemuria under Mount Shasta. So he decided, now 30 years later, it was time to go back to the mountain. And when J.C. Brown returned to Mount Shasta, he put together a search party to help him rediscover Lemuria. Brown had assembled a group of 80 researchers, scientists, and explorers. And after 1,000 years of legend, Lemuria was about to be proven real. Newspapers widely covered the story, and the excitement around the adventure was palpable. Then, on the morning that the expedition was set to begin, J.C. Brown didn't show. People combed every tavern, every street, every inn looking for him, but they would find no trace. J.C. Brown had vanished and was never heard from again. Explanations for J.C. Brown's disappearance covered everything. Some said he was simply a fraud, though he never took a penny from anyone. Others said a secret but powerful organization learned of Brown's plans and had him erased. Yep, but a few others were convinced that J.C. Brown no longer needed a search party to find Lemuria, that he had been granted access and taken there by some mysterious machine. And to hear descriptions of this machine, it sounds like a vehicle or a... Right. There have been UFO sightings around Mount Shasta going back over 100 years. And in recent years, sightings are accelerating. Of the top 300 UFO hotspots in the world, Mount Shasta is ranked 13th. People have seen chrome objects hovering above dark mountain roads. Others report lights moving in formation, silently swarming the peak, and then disappear. One of the most widely reported UFO sightings happened in 2008. Residents said they saw what looked like a giant glowing jellyfish hovering over the mountain. Eyewitnesses said it made no noise, but it seemed to have a fire raging inside of it. Now, unfortunately, there are no photos from this sighting, but just last year, someone captured this footage.
This happened. I'm sorry. What is that? The passenger on the plane looked out the window, grabbed the phone. This was filmed in June. The traveler sees that, an object apparently changing shape in seconds.
And what makes Mount Shasta UFOs really strange is that they don't just hover around the mountain. People have seen them fly into the mountain, and they don't mean they flew into an opening in the mountain. Every single person said UFOs flew into the side of the mountain and just vanished into the rock. It's been said that Mount Shasta is hiding an energy vortex that allows passage into another dimension. Locals believe the UFOs hide in the clouds and enter the mountain through some kind of portal. But that begs the question, a portal to where?
Like Wei Chi, everything in the universe follows its own rules. Win with elegance, govern with care. Both demand one's utmost grace and tact. Do you still remember what I taught you?
Yes. To break a stalemate.
First envision a larger play, then adapt accordingly. Sometimes information can evade deliberate enemies. Second, always act to seize the initiative. Turn their schemes against them, and you can drive them into a corner.
The City Hall has discovered our interference, just as the Lord oversees. But to sit bureaucrats of the capital, it seems the little magistrate's luck has run out.
I don't know what they want me to
It's
do.
only a matter of time before the Tornodian descends. Any struggle is futile.
Is that so?
Yeah!
Show no mercy. Punish if bad. Never. Victory will be yours. Keep it in mind. Chicho finds itself in a complex web. What would you do, teacher? You already know the answer, don't you? And as for the most critical move, it's already been made. Isn't that right, Rover?
It's time to grow your business. Create a website. How? GoDaddy. Coding? Nah. But all that writing? Nope. AI. Done. Built. Let's get to work. Create a beautiful website in minutes with GoDaddy.
For decades, eyewitnesses have seen strange beings in Mount Shasta's caves that seem to have the ability to walk through walls. They just vanish. And it's not just these strange beings that disappear on Mount Shasta. It's one of the most active hotspots in North America for mysterious disappearances. In 2011, a young couple was camping on Mount Shasta with their 3-year-old son. Suddenly, the boy's parents looked up, and their son was gone. They immediately called the authorities, and a massive search went on for 5 hours. Then, a sheriff's deputy heard a quiet voice coming from a bush not far from the campsite. This was odd because dozens of trained search and rescue professionals had combed every inch of this area multiple times and found nothing. But the boy was found unharmed, so this was called a successful operation, and that was pretty much the end of it. It wasn't until a few weeks later when the story would take a mysterious turn. The boy was talking to his grandmother, who he called Grandma Cappy, about the incident. He said he liked this Grandma Cappy better than the other Grandma Cappy who found him in the woods. Yeah. The boy's mother was upset by this. What other Grandma Cappy? The boy said the other Grandma Cappy had taken him to a cave in the woods. There were other people there too who were just frozen in place. And this new grandma seemed nice enough, but then she wanted to examine the boy. And for some reason she asked him to defecate on a piece of paper. No, he said he couldn't go. But it gets even stranger. Grandma Cappy said that just a few weeks earlier, she was camping in the same area when she blacked out. Then she woke up face down in the dirt and noticed she had a strange puncture wound on the back of her neck. She said she was violently ill and thought it was some kind of spider bite. She was camping with a friend who also had a similar wound and was also terribly sick. Well, that's one theory. And Grandma Cappy said she's never going to that mountain again. Then there's the story of Carl Landers. In 1999, Landers, along with 2 friends, set out to hike to the summit of Mount Shasta. And along the trail, Landers just vanished. He didn't wander off, he didn't cry for help, he was just gone. And it's not like he disappeared into the woods or fell down a hole. There was good visibility for over 100 yards. Landers vanished in a wide open field, and he was an experienced hiker who knew this terrain extremely well. Yet somehow he disappeared off the mountain without a trace. And for a week, a huge manhunt searched every inch of the area. The National Guard even sent helicopters equipped with infrared sensors. Nothing was found. No equipment, no clothing, no body. All gone. To this day,
How do I
there's no
get up
explanation for what
there?
happened. So what's going on at Mount Shasta? Can we use logic and science to explain these mysteries? Well, it's difficult to explain ancient native legends because we have no evidence to support or refute the stories. Since the legends have been passed down over several thousand years, not only is it possible, but it's likely that these stories evolved over time. I mean, who can resist adding a little drama to make a story seem more mystical? I'm guilty of doing it on this channel. Mount Shasta isn't a very active volcano now, but it's erupted many times in the past. and human settlements weren't present during those eruptions. Native tribes describe Mount Shasta as the home of a god who throws flaming rocks at his enemies. We can certainly see that these ancients were trying to make sense of what they saw. When American Indians spoke of giants, did they really mean Bigfoot? It's not clear. There isn't much recording of Bigfoot until 1924, when a few gold prospectors came back from an expedition talking about how they were attacked by giant ape men who threw boulders at their camp. And the story caught fire and grabbed so much attention that park rangers launched an investigation. What they found didn't impress them. They said the boulders were actually just large rocks that looked like they were placed there by the men, and there were supposedly Bigfoot tracks in the area. But when the rangers looked closely at the tracks, it was clear they were made by one of the miners using his knuckles and the palm of his hand. Still, there's no stopping a viral story, and the legend of Bigfoot was born. But what about these portals that seem to swallow people whole? Is there any science to support the phenomenon that 2 points in space can be joined by nothing but energy? Turns out, there is. In 2013, NASA discovered a phenomenon called an X-point. X-points are places where the magnetic field of the Earth is directly connected to the magnetic field of the Sun. This is an uninterrupted path of energetic particles leading from our planet all the way to our stars 93 million miles away. Another study confirmed these portals and found some of them are opening and closing very quickly, but others are stable for long periods of time. Now, obviously, we can't use these portals to travel yet, but there is science to support that the Earth is magnetically tethered to the Sun, and the magnetism around Mount Shasta is highly unusual. The entire area is blanketed by an enormous negative magnetic anomaly. Could this area of strong magnetism be creating ruptures in space that cause people to disappear? Well, that's a stretch. But if some kind of electromagnetic event were to occur, there are a few places on Earth better suited than Mount Shasta. Now, the story of the missing boy who suddenly reappeared 5 hours later, that's true. It's the part about his grandma Cappy and the puncture in her neck. That came from someone claiming to be her posting her story on the internet, so I don't know. And the boy's parents, conveniently, want to remain anonymous. But Carl Landers really did disappear without a trace, as have many people on Mount Shasta. At the same time, missing hikers are discovered not far from their last known position, usually dead from injuries from a fall. But it's worth acknowledging that there are plenty, I mean lots, of people who just vanish with no explanation. Well, the UFO sightings can't really be explained. Weather around
What am I supposed to do? It's ridiculous.
creates what's known as lenticular cloud formations. Lenticular clouds look like giant UFOs, but they're just clouds. As for what looks like flying spacecraft hovering around and disappearing into the mountains, we'd be silly to discount these reports. Even our own government is finally admitting there are objects zipping around the planet that just can't be explained. So what about J.C. Brown and Lemuria? Well, the J.C. Brown story is a great one, but it might be debunked. In 2017, a researcher named Stephen Sidoni tracked down a man named John Benjamin Bodie, a mining engineer who retired in Mount Shasta. And Bodie had worked for the Lord Cowderay Mining Company, which was also J.C. Brown's employer. And Bodie lived right across the street from where J.C. Brown had given daily lectures on the land of Los Cementeros. This may not be definitive proof that J.C. Brown was a hoax, but it's pretty compelling research. And I should note that Sidoni is not a debunker. He's a hollow Earth researcher who's been on countless TV and radio shows discussing how the Earth is hollow and home to alien civilizations that live right under our feet. And speaking of hollow Earth, what about Lemuria? Is it hiding inside Mount Shasta? I think Lemuria is the best legend about Mount Shasta, and I'm not the only one. Entire religions have been built around the Lemuria story. In the 1930s, Guy Ballard, a mining engineer, was exploring Mount Shasta. He said he was met by a young man named the Count of Saint Germain. And Count Saint Germain is a legend in paranormal history. He's supposedly immortal and shows up during all kinds of historical events. There's even an account of him being present at the signing of the Declaration of Independence, where he actually gave a speech. And we're going to do a whole video on Saint Germain. He deserves more attention. But anyway, Ballard and his wife Edna claim to be the sole messengers of Saint Germain and other ascended masters, as they're called. The Ballards began giving public lectures on Saint Germain's teachings and eventually had grown the I Am activity movement to over 1 million followers. Oh, it's not. And after Ballard passed away in 1971, most of the I Am members left the religion, but it's still around. You can visit the I Am Reading Room right now in Mount Shasta City. And Lemuria and Atlantis were nothing more than stories for hundreds, even thousands of years. But with the discoveries like Bimini Road in the Bahamas and the Yonaguni Monument off the coast of Japan, we have to start wondering if these myths weren't myths at all, but actual places. And skeptics will say Bimini and Yonaguni are natural formations, but I'll put the pictures up for you to decide. To me, Bimini Road is iffy. I lean toward man-made, but I can see the other side of the argument. But Yonaguni? That looks 100% man-made to me, so what if? Mount Shasta has captured the imagination of people around the world for centuries, and those who visit often say the mountain called to them. And I think it's fair to say that if you're the type of person who goes to a place expecting to have a spiritual or a supernatural experience, there's a good chance you'll have one. The mind is a powerful thing. But as long as you're not starting religions based on this, I don't think there's anything wrong with believing what others say is a crazy theory. Our civilization's greatest leaps forward come from heretics who dare to challenge the status quo. From mavericks and dissenters have come scientific discoveries that altered the course of history and forced even the most ardent skeptics to wonder, what if? What if there was an ancient civilization that sunk beneath the ocean?
Good
And
work.
what if the children of those people are here now, just waiting for our own civilization to catch up, waiting for us to emerge from our selfish adolescence so we can join a larger community, one that exists only for scientific discovery.
Use lockpicks to open doors and containers. Lockpicks can easily be crafted from scrap, so let's make sure to use them frequently. To pick locks you need
But as long as there are
find the correct position
heretics
for the
and
upper
dissenters,
peg.
we have a chance. And if you're one of
Move
those,
the upper peg with L. To test the upper position, move the lower peg with R.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. My name is AJ, that's Hecklefish. This has been the Y-Files. If you had fun or learned anything, do me a favor and subscribe, comment, like, share. All that stuff really helps the channel. Trying to beat the YouTube algorithm is like trying to find the lost
You know
city
your
of
stuff.
Telos.
I had no
With
other
your help,
choice.
you can find it
I was
together.
forced
So until
to
next
know my
time, be
stuff.
safe, be kind, and know that you are appreciated.
Oh, what the hell?
Fancy feast, savory, puree, natural. A tasty, natural treat with no artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Savor the moment with Fancy Feast.
Call some help. Here you go.
That won't work. Let's go. This way. Dark zone in front of us. Keep quiet.
Finally, the Alpha 11 AI processor only intelligently opened.
It likely happened during one of the many African humid periods that have occurred over the last millions of years. These are times when shifts in the planet's climate caused rains to fall on the Sahara Desert. During these periods, the desert bloomed into a verdant grassland, home to animals and people. And when the period ended, the grasses would die, the animals would leave, and the sands would return.
Invitation, princess.
It's thought that this cycle has occurred more than 200 times since the desert first formed 8 million years ago.
The taximeter's ticking. Get a move on. Get inside. The taximeter's ticking. Get a move on.
a special invitation, princess.
There. And when it's handy, a jinn is going to say, oh, there's treasure buried over there. He's going to say it to his, magician or whatnot, and eventually they will find it. So the jinns have capabilities we do not have. They are faster than men. They are more powerful than men. The average jinn is more powerful than the average man. Again, that doesn't mean they're super powerful. That doesn't mean they're infinitely powerful. Only Allah Azza wa Jal is infinitely powerful. But the average jinn is physically stronger than the average man. I myself have seen a little lady, petite lady, 5 foot tall, literally, it's just a young teenager possessed by jinn. We were doing ruqya on her, and we're holding her down. At least 7, when I say 10 to 7 men were holding her down, and she's struggling to throw all of them off.
Get inside.
And my friend was there in the audience as well, and he grabbed her. He had to, because she was harming people. He grabbed her. What do you call this lock? What do you call that when you grab from behind? Huh? The body lock, right? Right? Like that one. He grabbed her from behind because she was punching men and everything. And this is a little lady. She took her head and she whammed right back on his nose, and the guy is like, what's going on? So this is, I saw it by my own eyes, 5 foot, and she became more powerful than 7 men. But in the end, 7, 8 men eventually did bring her down. She wasn't stronger than all of them. Physically, stronger than the average man, but still manageable. You can bring them down. It's not as if they're all powerful and whatnot. Only Allah is all powerful. So these are there physically. They can do things we don't understand. But it's just like a horse can gallop faster than us. Like an elephant is stronger than us. The only thing that freaks us out is that the jinn is invisible to us. Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّهُ يَرَاكُمْ هُوَ وَقَبِيلُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا تَرَوْنَهُمْ. They see you from a paradigm you cannot see them from. They can choose when to show themselves to you. They can see you from their world. We cannot see them unless they choose to show us their world. So there's nothing to be scared about. Allah gave them certain powers He didn't give us. Like He gave animals other powers He didn't give us. But Allah blessed us over the jinn. How do we know this? وَإِنَّا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ يَسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ prostrate to Adam. Allah preferred the Adam over and Bani Adam over Malaika and Jinn. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Bani Adam have been lifted up and put on the pedestal in the hierarchy of things, and the angels and Jinn were told to bow down to Adam. Adam is superior to the Jinn. Why? Because Adam has something far greater than physical strength, than speed, than going at the speed of light. Adam has jinns don't have that level of intellect. And this shows us, by the way, the power of the mind is more blessed than the power of the body. The mind is more important than physical strength.
Everything
Allah
okay?
blessed Adam with a greater intellect, a greater fahm.
Yeah. Are you sure?
Allah taught Adam.
Talk to me.
وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. The angel said, سُبْحَانَكَ لَا عِلْمَ لَنَا إِلَّا مَا عَلَّمْتَنَا. So Adam was blessed over the malaika and over the jinns because
been
of
in one
the
like
power
this
of
before.
wisdom,
A GRE
because of the
facility.
fahm that Allah
Well, there are a few of them around the city.
I'm having these memories. The person I'm looking for is Mia. She's my sister. I told you about Walt before.
Mention something.
Some have said they are like children with their intellect.
It's all mixed up in my head.
That's one of the reasons why they're
You
so
suppressed
stubborn.
the memory.
Every Iraqi knows.
Like I
Just
did of my
stubborn,
third
like a
wife.
toddler throwing a tantrum.
I'm
Not
sure
wanting
the
to give
infection
up.
is
Hours
helping.
go by and they're not
Chin
going to
up.
give up. That
We'll
stubbornness
find the marker and
because
clear
of
out.
their intellectual capabilities. So the Bani-Adams are more intelligent than the jinn, and Allah has blessed them above the jinn. Therefore, the jinns from the very beginning have had what modern psychologists call an inferiority complex. Jinns suffer from a severe inferiority complex because the jinns felt, hey, I should have been there. Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us in the Quran that Iblis says, "Ana khayrun min." That was supposed to be me. Why did you tell Adam to be the one on the podium? I'm the one that's supposed to be there, right? So the jinns always wanted to be number one. The jinns always wanted to be the best, but they're not. So they suffer from an inferiority complex. Now, given the fact that they have an inferiority complex, and yet they are stronger and faster and physically more powerful than men, what is the net result? The net result is there is a world, and understand that world was a fitna that Allah taught to early man. The story of Babylon, right? وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانُ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ عَلى الملكين ببابل هاروت وماروت وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَ إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. In the nutshell of a story, that Harut and Marut were angels that Allah sent to the ancient city of Babylon. 5,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago, the earliest city of mankind was Babylon. And Allah sent two angels to inform mankind, because this is ilm al-ghayb. Mankind would never have known at all that we could communicate with the jinn. So Allah sent Harut and Marut. And Harut and Marut were angels. And for phone plans that you've never seen, try the other side with Viz. Try the fair side. Like if you have leftover data at the end of the month, it rolls over, so you can use it the next month. Try the fun side. All our members are rewarded just for being there. Stuff like dollars off and free data. And our phone plans aren't set in stone, so you can customize your own as much as you like. Come on, there's a whole different world of phone plans waiting for you. Try the other side. Switch to Viz.
What is that? Chemicals. Nasty shit. When they lost control of the virus, the GRE started spraying the whole city with that filth. Worked out great for them, huh?
It was when we finally found friends to watch 5 a.m. cricket.
They taught mankind that we are a test from Allah. Do not come close to us. We are a test from Allah. Literally, like the warning signs, you know, the carbon radioactive dating, do not come close. The angels are telling them, our job is to test you. Get out of here, don't listen to us.
This guy you told me about, what was his name? Waltz?
Yes.
Why did you mention him?
Because I remember he was doing some kind of experiment.
A methodology. And they
He
said,
wasn't the
if
only
you
one doing
follow
that.
us, if you
There
listen
were
to
more
us,
cities
this
like
is
Villador,
kufr.
with walls cut off from the rest of the world. Many people were working toward a vaccine, Aiden.
The methodologies and mechanisms
Well, the world is full of shitheads.
They are madhabs that go back to this origin. Because they're different madhabs. You have the Ouija board, you have the dolls, what is it called, the voodoo dolls, okay? You have the knots that are blown. These are all different madhabs that all go back to the experiences of the Sahara, of the magicians that go back to the origin of Harut and Marut in the city of Babylon. So, initially man was taught that this is what you do. You call the jinn, and if you call the jinn, it's a kufr, don't do it. Mankind didn't care. They said we want to do it.
Be careful.
And thus, magic
It's not
begins.
stable.
What is magic therefore? Magic, as I said, sihr, is the intersection of the world of men with the world of jinn. Both are not meant to be intersected. These two worlds are meant to be separate. And if an accidental crossing takes place, it is easier to repel than it will be done. If a jinn comes into our world, comes some fitna and fazat on its own, it's much easier to repel. It is so to me, 5 minutes, you'll understand magic, and inshallah never be scared of it for the rest of your life. Magic is an evil person.
You alive?
Who has sold his soul
I guess
to the
so.
devil in order for the shayateen to perform some tricks. It's like you feed your horse or your pony.
Sure,
to
give me a sec.
The only difference is you're not feeding a horse or
running out of
pony.
time.
You are feeding a demon, a shaitan. And the difference is that what the sahir is doing is giving the jinn the one thing that the jinn wants. What does the jinn want?
I can't make it.
Card with expiration date.
I've got an
Your
idea.
cash? What is the jinn going to do with your
Cocktail I served you earlier.
What is the
at
jinn
the
going to
girls'
do with your
workshop.
money? They don't have currency in the jinn world. What does the jinn want? What has it
You fell to the
always
first floor.
wanted? Sisters, I
There's
want to
some
ask you.
GRE
What does the
storage
jinn
down
want?
there. Look for white,
Superiority,
green
so how are you going to get
crates.
it?
Inhibitors should be inside.
What do you have to do?
If you take another dose, you should get your strength back.
yourself in front of the demon. You have to become the slave of the jinn. The biggest myth of the destroy is the false idea that the sahir controls the jinn.
Nothing could be further from the truth. It is the jinn that controls this. The magician is a disgusting creature of a human that has sold itself and its dignity and its izzah and its mass and its suffering in order to demon. And that's why these things of get a toad of a, eye of a newt and go to the graveyard at 3 a.m. and get the blood of a donkey. Why? Because the jinn wants to see that Sahib humiliate himself. Go to the graveyard at 3 a.m.
Oh my god, I feel like my heart is like pumping out of my chest right now.
To the devil. So the shaitan, the sense that look what I can make this guy do. Right? Running on do whatever I tell him to do. So the Sahib becomes the worshipper of the jinn, not the other way around. How can a human being control the jinn? Anyone can do this. By what will a human control the jinn? Whips? Chains? What? How will a human control the jinn? There is nothing that the human has that the jinn can be controlled by. That's what Allah gave to Sulaiman. No other person has that power. The jinn controls the human emotionally. It tells the human, do this, do this, do this. The human does it. In return, what does the jinn do? Some tricks and trades to make the magician happy. You want me to go and harm somebody? I'll go harm somebody. Now you got to go and worship me in this manner. You want me to go plant some bad stuff in a person's house or possess a body or break up a marriage? Okay, I'll go do that, and now you continue to worship me. The jinn does something utterly trivial for its world. In its world, it just does something that it is physically capable of doing. Allah gave the jinn certain natural powers to be invisible, to be super fast, to do things hidden manner. For example, the most common type of magic is يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَالْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ, where husband and wife are not able to have a happy marriage, and if conjugal arrangements are attempted, perhaps something supernatural, perhaps the husband feels a physical pressure, perhaps something happens. These are things that are manifestations of the jinn. It's not that difficult for the jinn to push a man back. How is that difficult? Why are we scared of the jinn? The jinn is simply like a bug, an insect. You understand? It has certain irritable qualities, but you understand it. It's not something you need to be like supernaturally terrified of. If you understand that the magician is the one selling himself, which wants to do in his favor, and so the magician will say, so you go to the magician and you pay the magician in American Express. He'll accept American Express. You see $100 and I'll do the potion. You give the guy $100 and the magician will do the potion that the jinn wants. And then the jinn will then go and basically listen to the magician. You're dead. Another thing we need to know is that jinns work in gangs. Jinns are the mafia. So the magician approaches the godfather, the Don. Okay? The jinn approaches the Don, the godfather. And the godfather sends its minions. Generally not the one that is approaching, it's the one that will go and do the sending. It's the worker class of the jinn. They're the ones that are sent, right? Because the godfather jinn has an entire mafia under his disposal. And you just send the jinn, so that jinn will then be persistent for years, decades, and live in your house, cause issues.
Don't be a chicken,
and
Eddie.
that jinn is getting whatever recognition, and I don't know their internal currency, but it's getting a benefit from the Don, right? It's getting something from the big guy, and so it's doing what it does, and a lot of times it's also scared of the big guy. A lot of times it's terrified of the big guy. Once I was doing ruqya, and I said to the jinn, after a long time, why are you still here? Just leave. And the jinn said, I can't leave. I said, why? Just leave. And the jinn said, I'm scared. If I go, then he will kill me. Who is going to kill you? The one who put me here. The one who brought me here. Meaning the head jinn, or whatever the Don would be. I'm scared he's going to kill me. He's going to hurt me. So I have to stay here. So internally, they're doing whatever they can, and they're getting it done. So bottom line, sihr is merely the intersection of the world of men and the world of jinn. Once you understand the reality of this world, you should not be scared of it in the slightest. It is a nuisance, it is an irritation, but it's not something that brings about supernatural fear. Also, realize this, that the jinn is absolutely terrified of Allah and the name of Allah and the dhikr of Allah and the speech of Allah. The jinn is terrified, and that is why if ever in your life you feel the presence of a jinn, you see something supernatural, it will be terrified if your bravery is manifested to it because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fact that you have no fear, and I have experienced this, and I know all of the Raqis in the audience know this firsthand. You stare at it straight, and you just say, as the Prophet taught us to say, memorize this phrase, Bismillah, Ana Abdullah, Ukhruj Aduwallah. 3 phrases. Memorize them. Bismillah, in the name of Allah. I'm not powerful. I'm not going to do anything. I am connecting with Allah. Bismillah. I am the servant of Allah. I speak with Allah's name now. I'm not speaking in my name. I speak in the name of Allah. Get out, O enemy of Allah. You state this with firmness.
I took the inhibitor.
Fantastic. Go back to the elevator.
But if that ever happens, now, the opposite. And I understand it's a bit terrifying, but put yourself now in the psychology of the jinn. If you start wailing, screaming, cowering, what have you done, brothers and sisters? What have you done to the psychology of the jinn? Louder. Empowered it. You cooperate in the corner, terrified. That's what gives it the power. And that's why Hadith in Abu Dawood, our Prophet said,
hello,
there was a man who was on his camel, and the camel for no reason reared backward and was about to throw the man off. And the camel said, La'natullahi ala shaytan. Allah's curse be on shaytan. The Prophet said, don't say that. When you say that, shaytan becomes so big, he's bigger than a house. Because you have mentioned him as the cause of your animal rearing upwards. Rather, listen to this, say Bismillah, and shaitan will shrink until he's smaller than humans. This hadith shows us when you connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what you're doing is you are shrinking the power of the jinn. You're eliminating the power of the jinn. The only issue comes with this, we conclude, I know what can be said, with sihr, it's not that easy to kick it out because there's a binding engagement, there's a knot that has happened, there's some type of issue, so it requires long sessions with a professional or yourself. Feel free to do it with yourself as well, but just know what you're doing. Ask an expert or whatnot, and you can do it on yourself. There is no easy way to battle sihr. Have you guys done the symptoms of sihr? Have you done the symptoms of sihr? Number 1 symptom of sihr is bizarre, very dreams. Number 2 symptom of sihr is you feel somebody is there when nobody is there. You're conscious, there's an entity or a power. Number 3 symptom of sihr is inexplicable problems or disasters that cannot be explained. Okay? Anything that science can explain, medicine can explain is not sihr. You go to the doctor says, oh, you have this issue. That's not sihr. If the doctor can analyze it and the doctor tells you this is the problem, that's not sihr. Sihr is supernatural problem. Sihr, it doesn't make any sense. You wake up and there are bruises on your back. You wake up, there's marks here. You're having constant miscarriages, and the doctor's like, everything is normal. I did all the tests, and there's constant miscarriages for no reason. And every doctor's scratching their head, you're totally normal. And the 3rd week, 4th week, always there's a miscarriage around the same time frame. This is a symptom of sihr, that you don't know what's going on. Between husband and wife, everything seems fine. And then all of a sudden, when there's some romance, all of a sudden extreme anger or inexplicable feelings or pushing or whatnot, these are supernatural symptoms. When these exist, and only when you find them, otherwise if these symptoms don't exist, it's not sihr. I have to say this, most of what we think is sihr is our imagination. It's not usual sihr. So, if you are not sure about a supernatural sign, then Assume it's not safe. There has to be something
gone a while.
Bottom line
How are you
is
feeling?
food.
I'm infected, but good to go.
They are creatures of Allah,
Yeah,
like all other creatures.
that's great.
And if you turn to Allah, you are more
Sorry
skillful
about
than
this.
these creatures. These creatures
Sorry about
are
what?
terrified of Iman, of taqwa,
About that, on behalf of all its whores, bandits, and idiots, I christen you a citizen of Villador.
If your heart is speak with a voice and say, this is
You're about to turn.
I speak to
Get
you
into
in
the
name
night
of
fast.
Allah. I am the servant of Allah. Get out of here, enemy of Allah. Say this us all righteous children and righteous children that are firm upon their iman and are protected from the world of the jinn and the shaytan.
That was close. Oh, what would you do without me, Pilgrim?
I never wanted to become a pilgrim. I just sort of fell into it. Roamed the country for another reason entirely. I'm looking for my sister.
A number of people
And
asking
then
about age
Then-
limits and whatnot.
What will you do
Again,
once you find your
parents, it's up
sister?
to you. Obviously, this topic is not one of a explicit nature in the sensual sense. It is one that is a little bit
Well, that's odd.
possibly
Well, there'll be time
scary
for
to
that
those
once
who
I find her.
might so be
Once you
disinclined
find
or
her.
inclined. So that's your decision as parents.
Well, I have a very
It's not
specific
something that I
plan.
can dictate upon
You look like someone with a specific
you
plan.
child better, so it's up to you. I'm not
I'd
going
like
to
to live by the
intentionally give
ocean.
any horror stories.
You
It's
know,
rather
it's
an
supposed to be
academic
easier
talk about
there.
the reality in light of the Quran and
I
Sunnah.
always
So
wanted to
really
learn
it's
how
up
to
you,
surf.
About the
What, you find a
age
bunch of old
limits.
postcards or something?
With that, let us begin.
Don't laugh at my dreams, man. I know one thing. I have to get out of this city.
It is something
It's
that I
killing
find
me.
very interesting.
Right from the
that
inside.
each and every culture in the world,
Will you help me?
each and every
The
civilization
ocean's a long way from here.
has
And we're both infected.
these
People don't want
notions,
pilgrims for their
these
neighbors.
superstitions of
Fuck
entities
people.
that exist
I will help
out
you
in the
with
human
them.
world. This is universal.
And you can help me survive on the road.
Civilization.
You know the routes. You know how to survive out in the open. What do you think?
Advanced or in the jungle,
We cover
doesn't
each
matter.
other's asses.
Exists.
How does that sound?
Except that they believe in something beyond this physical world. And they have different
Okay.
names for them.
Let's do it.
In English, we have the demons
Awesome.
and the ghosts
Deal.
and whatnot. And in every culture
You won't
and
regret to say
civilization,
that.
I just came
I promise.
from Norway, and they
As
have
for your
you
goal,
know, this thing that comes out of
here's
woods,
the
and this is
situation
based
around
on
here.
this and that, but now we
After
call
the
that English
PK commander was
development,
murdered, they
but
blocked
the
the route to
notion
the
is there,
center.
that there's
They're trying to
something
keep
that
the killer
lives
from
beyond
escaping.
you. And they're very scared.
To get to Fish
and
Eye,
they're
we have to outsmart them.
and there's something you cannot control.
But I know when they
control
change
you.
the night guard.
And it is interesting.
That
You go
will
to
be
the
our
native
chance.
Indians, they believe this. You go to the Aborigines, they believe this.
I'm gonna
You
get
go
the stuff
to-
we need for the
even in this
passage.
day and age, we're living in the 21st
I have to
century
suss out our
America.
odds.
Hollywood,
Meantime,
and how many movies
take a look
are
around.
dedicated to
Live a
the
little.
supernatural, the possession,
Come on.
to
Let me show you something.
Exorcist and its genre. All of this to this day, and this is we are supposed to be the pinnacle of civilization. But this notion of some entities or some reality living in worlds that are simultaneous to us, but yet not quite our
You'll
world,
need these.
right? This
Take a
is
look
something
around the
that
city.
is ingrained
Old
in all of
Villador.
humanity.
Plenty of interesting
From
spots to
our
check out.
perspective, of course, this shows us that the reason why all cultures agree is because it is real, right? From our perspective, we say the reason why each and every civilization believes in spiritual entities, and they are generally speaking spiritual entities, ghosts or demons or ghouls or whatnot, they believe in them because they are real and these societies experience them. These societies experience them, and there is, I don't know if it's still ongoing or not, there's a number of series on the sci-fi channels and other learning networks and whatnot, in which allegedly they interview live people, about what has happened to them. The haunting of such and such. And the reality is, now these are educated people, you listen to them, many of them say, I never believed in this stuff. I was raised as a very, modern, very educated person. I never believed this could happen. But then what are you going to do when XYZ begins to happen, right? And from our perspective, we look at all of this, we read all of this, and it fits in perfectly with our worldview. And in all honesty, for the believer, for the mu'min, all of these stories of the other nationalities and other groups should actually increase his or her iman. That in reality, this is a sign of our iman, of our religion being true. One of the signs of our religion being true, it explains even the supernatural and the paranormal. It explains in complete logic and rationality. When you study the characteristics of the jinn, and you see what is happening in other societies and even in our society, everything is explained. So I find this to be very fascinating and interesting. And also, before we begin, we're still in the introduction, realize this is a part 1. There will be at some unspecified time in the future a part 2, which will be definitely more technical and perhaps, I don't want to use that term, perhaps maturity would be more, discretion is definitely going to be applied there, and it will talk about, part 2 will talk about black magic and possession and what, that's going to be part 2. So part 1 is really not about that type of stuff. Part 1 is we're just talking about the reality of the jinn in accordance with the Quran and Sunnah. Now, what exactly does the term jinn mean? Where does it come from? The Arabic word jinn comes from a root that implies something that is concealed from the eyes, something that is hidden. And so there are so many words in the Arabic language from this root, all of which imply hiding. For example, a shield in Arabic is called mijan, because you're hiding yourself behind the shield. An embryo, what is an embryo called in Arabic? Janeen. The embryo is called a janeen, because it is hidden in the womb of the mother. The verb jannah, without the ta marbuta, just the verb jim noon with the shadda jannah. The verb jannah, without the ta marbuta, not the noun jannah, but the verb jannah, means the spreading of the night, the enveloping of the night so that you can't see anything. In the Quran, Allah says about Ibrahim, فَلَمَّا جَنَّ عَلَيْهِ اللَّيْلُ رَأَى كَوْكَبًا. When the night jannah, he saw the stars. The meaning of jannah here means the darkness enveloped it. He couldn't see anything. And that is why also Jannah, the noun, is a garden that is enclosed with a wall. You can't see inside it. So Jannah with a noun, the garden that has been enclosed by a wall, therefore you cannot see inside it. And madness in Arabic is jinnah with a kasrah. Am yaquluna bihi jinnah. Do they say our Prophet has jinnah in him? And jinnah is madness. And from jinnah we get majnoon. So a person is mad because his intellect seemingly disappears. Because the meaning of Jannah always is hidden. So majnoon, the one whose intellect or whose rationality does not exist, or at least you don't see it, it's disappeared. And this is, all of these terms come from the same root, and that is to hide or to be hidden. And that is why the term jinn is also applied to this entity, because it is an entity that is completely
this game is sticky
hidden from the eyes of men. We do not see them. They are in a world that is beyond our physical world that we inhabit. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentions jinn in the Quran, and our Prophet talks a little bit about the jinn. We don't have that many hadith about the jinn, and therefore the fact of the matter is we have to take what we can from the Quran and Sunnah. That's going to take it as a fact. The rest is folklore and legend, and we don't base our religion on folklore and legend. But there's no harm in narrating certain things that we think we know about the jinn. There's no harm in narrating things that we believe we know about the jinn, and I will always differentiate between what is Quran and Sunnah and what is folklore or things that we might assume in our times. That we have to be very clear here. If Allah says it, end of story. We take it as fact. However, if it's something we discover upon ourselves or seems to be a reality, then we will say this is a theory, this is a possibility, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So, what does Allah tell us about the jinn? What does our Prophet tell us about the jinn? Of the things we know about the jinn is that they were created before men. The Quran is very explicit. The Quran is very explicit that before we existed, the jinn existed. Before Allah created Adam, He had created the jinn. Allah says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ مِنْ حَمَإٍ مَسْنُونٍ. We created man from a type of hard clay, rock that had become rock solid that you could knock on it and it would reverberate. وَالْجَانَّ خَلَقْنَاهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ مِنْ نَارِ السَّمُومِ. And the Jan, the plural of jinn is Jan. And the Jan we had created before that from, now memorize the Arabic, Nar as-Samum. So a Nar, that is Samum. What is Samum? We'll come to it. So this is one adjective that Allah says. We created jinn from a Nar, from a fire that is Samum. Also the Quran mentions that Allah Azza wa Jal created jinn from min marijin min nar, from marij of nar. So samum and marij. Keep these adjectives, we'll come back to it. So Allah says that we created the jinn min marijin min nar. And Allah says we created jinn from nar is samum. These are the two main adjectives given. Of course, nar is in both. And sometimes Allah says we created jinn from nar. Sometimes He says from nar is samum. Sometimes He says from marijin min nar. Surah Al-Rahman, that خَلَقَ الْجَانَ مِن مَارِجٍ مِن نَارٍ. We created jinn from marij of nar. So these are really the main descriptions. Our Prophet ﷺ, exact same phrase in Sahih Muslim. Our Prophet ﷺ said, خُلِقَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ مِن نُور. The angels have been created from nur. وَخُلِقَتِ الْجَانِ مِن مَارِجٍ مِن نَار. And the jinn have been created from marij of fire. وَخُلِقَتِ الْإِنسان, or خُلِقَ Adam, excuse me, مِمَّا وُصِفَ لَكُمْ. And Adam has been created in a manner that has been clearly described for you, because the description of the creation of Adam is far more explicit than the description of the creation of the jinn. We don't have how the jinn were created. We simply have what they were created from. And of course, of the evidences that the jinn were created from fire is the well-known evidence of Iblis and Adam. What did Iblis say? أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ خَلَقَتَنِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقَتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. And scholars point out the first racist was Iblis. The first racist was Iblis. Because Iblis was the one who thought, I am better because of where I come from. I am better because of what I have been used to be created by. Right? So he thought he's better simply because he's created from now. But the point is, we don't want to go into that tangent. The point is, Iblis very clearly says, خَلَقَتَنِي مِن نَار. You created me from nar, وَخَلَقَتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. And you created him from طين. So what does marij mean and what does samum mean? These are the two main
Wow,
adjectives
this is a huge place.
Creation. As for marij means to merge or to combine. مَرَجَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ يَلْتَقِيَانِ. The two oceans are interweaving and mixing. Maraja. So maraja means to mix and to weave together, to flow out and to weave as you go forward. So marijin min nar, from a mixture of fires, from different types of fires. And Ibn Abbas commented that the marij of the nar is the corner of the flames, that you have all the different colors,
to mark
the
a
red
windmill.
and the green and the blue and the orange and the yellow. And if you look at the fire or the flame, right, if you have a very large fire, this you cannot see on a match, you can see it on a larger fire. If you have a large fire, the periphery of the fire, it has all of these bizarre colors, very interesting colors. Ibn Abbas said that is what they were created from. The marij, the very ending of the fire. As for the word samum, samum has been understood in two different ways. One meaning is that samum is a smokeless fire. It is a fire that is raw heat without any dukhan, without any smoke. And that is valid because the jinn don't have smoke. They are created from a fire that doesn't have we don't see the smoke. We don't see the
It's the center of the district.
Right? So the jinn have been created from a smokeless fire. Not as samum. This is one interpretation. And another interpretation, Ibn Abbas said, samum is the light of the lightning. This is a different type of light, not the light of the match. This is the light of the lightning. And in reality, this is the same as the first meaning, because the lightning, does it have smoke? No, it doesn't have smoke, right? And so the light of lightning is a smokeless light, right? Now, this is now Quran here. I'm going to add my own theory, take it or leave it. And this is not a fact, this is my theory, my understanding of my own understanding of the Quran and Sunnah and my own interactions with this species. In my humble opinion, it is as if the jinn have been created from what we call energy. what physicists call energy. They are on the energy spectrum. And this demonstrates when non-Muslim ghost hunters, if you see the documentaries or TLC channel, whatever, right? When they go to a house and they want to see are there any haunted spirits, what do? And these are people that have never studied the Quran and Sunnah. They don't believe in the Quran and Sunnah. But experience has taught them that you can detect on the electromagnetic scale, you can detect on these, they have their counters that have energy readings in them, right? And also, other things prove this as well. And if you look at the characteristics of the Quran and Sunnah of the jinn, these are the characteristics of energy.